Is the Jeep Gladiator really just a Jeep Wrangler with a bed on it? Well, good morning everybody and welcome back to the channel. So the age-old question, or maybe the new question, is the Jeep Gladiator really just a Jeep Wrangler with a bed on it? You know, I've had a few people ask me to kind of do a little comparison. So I thought I'd kind of cover that a little bit today. Obviously, as you can see back here in the background, we have both the Jeep Wrangler over here. This is a Jeep JL. It is a two-door. And this is, of course, a Jeep Gladiator. Now, this is my wife's and this is mine. And you can see from the front, first of all, I mean, yeah, they're identical, I'd say. I don't know that there's really any difference other than the aftermarket bumper, of course, and the color. But they're pretty much identical, and they're pretty much identical right up until you get to the back seat. If you look inside, you can see here on the driver's side what it looks like, the opening, the space, everything in there looks pretty much identical. Let's go over and we'll show you the Jeep Wrangler when you take a peek inside at the front. Again, other than color, it's pretty much the same. Even has this lovely grab handle over here. If you watch my other channel, you know what I mean about that. But otherwise, it's basically identical. Now, where the differences come in. And first of all, let me just say that no, the Jeep Gladiator is simply not a Jeep Wrangler with a bed on the back. It is much, much different. First of all, it's evident when you take a look in the back. Obviously, we have four doors. You could get four doors if you had the four-door style Wrangler, of course. But much more room here. I mean, look at how that opens up. You can get in here. I'd say it probably has more room than my Tacoma does. Matter of fact, I know it does. So much more comfortable to ride inside here than when we take a look at the Jeep Wrangler. And this again is a two-door, but look at the space. There is no space. I mean, how do you even get in here? You know, you can pull the seat forward, my arm out of the way, and you can see back in there, it's very, very cramped. I've ridden back there, and let me tell you, it is no pleasure to ride in the back of a Jeep Wrangler. Maybe if you have the top off, be a little easier to get in, but otherwise, it is very cramped back there. Now, moving on from the back, of course, the obvious thing, there is no bed back here. We do have the bed, a little bit different bumper setup, a little bit different taillights. Those are all really just aesthetic things. Now, let's talk about what's really important, and that is ride quality. In my opinion, and granted, my wife's Jeep here is lifted. You can see it's got bigger wheels and tires, which are going to make a difference. It is going to impact the ride quality. My truck, except for the aftermarket wheels, is stock. I mean, the suspension is still stock, the tires are stock, everything except the wheels. So we are going to have a little bit of a difference there. But we did, of course, drive the Wrangler before we had it lifted, and I've had, I think, 2 or 3, maybe 4 Jeep Wranglers in the past. So I'm very familiar with how they ride. And the closest comparison I would give it, I guess, is it's a lumber wagon. The ride is horrible. It's rough. It's bouncy. They ride the cup or the curvature of the road. It's just a Jeep thing. And what I mean by that is every road has a little bit of a cup in it. And the way the Jeep is set up, at least the wheelbase on the Wrangler, it wants to ride side to side. It wants to ride over that cup. And let me tell you, the Gladiator does not do that. I don't know if it's because of the longer wheelbase. I don't know if it's maybe a little bit wider. Maybe it's because my tires poke out a little bit more. I do have a negative offset, which moves my wheels out. Maybe just about an inch. It's not huge, but that's an inch on each side. But the Gladiator does not ride the cup of the road like the Wrangler does. I paid particular attention to that on the trip because I'm very aware of that, and it drives me nuts in the Wrangler. You're always having to correct steering because it's all over the place. As far as ride quality, touched on that a little bit, there is no comparison. I would say that the Jeep Gladiator rides more like an SUV. Whereas the Wrangler bounces all over the place, feels every bump. Again, some of it attributable to the setup we have on it, but even so, the stock Wrangler rides rough. The Gladiator was comfortable. It was smooth. You still feel bumps. I mean, it still is a truck, right? It's not like it's some kind of a Lexus grade SUV or anything, but you definitely have a better ride quality in the Gladiator. And I would say that in no way is it simply a Wrangler with a bed on it. There is no comparison between the two. I think if you could drive blindfolded and someone put you inside the Gladiator and you were able to actually drive it, and I'm not suggesting you try this, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know it was a Jeep. You wouldn't know it was a Gladiator. You would probably think it was some sort of mid-level SUV would be my guess, because it just feels that good. Now, as far as the power goes, they both have the same engine. And I would say they both feel pretty much the same. Now, the Wrangler does feel a little bit quicker because it is lighter. I mean, if you look at this thing, there's nothing to it. You know, it's just a square box on wheels, doesn't have the bed, doesn't have the bigger back seat, simply doesn't have the same weight that the Gladiator does. So that engine does carry the Wrangler a little bit better, a little bit, well, I won't say better, a little bit quicker. It might be a little bit better at pickup, and it certainly does jump up a little quicker because it just doesn't have to move the weight that the Gladiator has. Now, my preference between the two, I would think that's probably pretty obvious. If I was looking for a Jeep, it would obviously be the Gladiator. You're going to pay a little bit more money for it. Not a lot, because let's face it, Jeeps are not cheap. They are priced fairly high. You can get pretty good discounts on them, on both. And they do hold their value. Well, I shouldn't say that about the Gladiator. I think the verdict is still out a little bit on that because the Gladiator hasn't been around long enough. But if you've looked at used Jeeps in good condition, they are not cheap. Not quite sure why that is, but it is what it is. So yeah, I would choose the Gladiator every time over the Wrangler, only because the ride quality is so much better. The Jeep Wrangler will beat you to death if you're sensitive to that. Now, I know there are some people out there who are going to tell me I'm nuts, the Wrangler's better, blah, 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 but I don't know. Maybe I'm more sensitive to that than most. So anyway, I just wanted to get on here, kind of talk about that a little bit. There is no comparison, and certainly the Jeep Gladiator is not just a Wrangler with a bed on it. And FYI, I did see an interview a while back with a representative from Jeep talking about the design of the Gladiator, and it was redesigned from the rear doors, I guess, or the back seat back. And it would have had to have been because there wasn't a Jeep Gladiator truck before. And kudos to Jeep, they did an awesome job with the Gladiator. I gotta say, it's probably one of my top 5 favorite vehicles, and I mean vehicles overall, that I've ever had. Pleasure to drive, plenty of power, I love it. Leave a comment down below, let me know what you think, an honest opinion. Not because you're a Wrangler fanboy or girl, but your honest opinion if you've driven both, comparing specifically the ride quality of the Jeep Wrangler here to the Jeep Gladiator. Anyway, appreciate you guys watching. Real quick, shameless plug, if you haven't before and you're interested, check out my other channel on my 2020 Tacoma out there. That channel is Rob Motive. Also, don't forget to click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. And one more thing, smash that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.